this video, we'll be looking at the top 10 selling American brands for the first decade of the 20th century. Creating this list was kind of difficult for a number of reasons. First of all, there was the issue of brands popping up and disappearing at approximately 50 a year. Secondly, there's the issue of limited or non-existent records for a lot of these companies. And third, due to the huge expansion of the industry during this period, if we actually just took the top 10 numbers, we would only be looking at the end of the decade, and that really wouldn't give us a full picture. So this is what I've come up with. We're going to start off with Columbia. Columbia was the best-selling American brand at the turn of the century. They offered both commercial and passenger vehicles in both gasoline and electric versions, so it's not particularly surprising that they would be the first brand to exceed 1,000 in annual sales. Of course, in the face of ever-increasing competition, these sales figures quickly dwindled, and they struggled to survive just to the end of the decade. They were replaced at the top of the sales charts by Locomobile, and by 1902, almost doubled what Columbia had done just a few years before, which is a little loco when you consider the fact that their success came with steam-powered vehicles using the Stanley patent, and the vehicles proved to be quite unreliable. And when they switched to more reliable gasoline engines, their popularity dropped significantly. And although the company would stick around for a few more decades, it would never again be considered a sales leader, which isn't something that we can say about the next brand on our list. Oldsmobile's Model R was quite successful right from the introduction, and with the help of endurance racing and publicity stunts, it would set an all-new sales record for 1903, selling approximately 4,000 vehicles, or approximately what all of its competitors had did the following year combined. And Oldsmobile would double those sales figures in the next 2 years. But it was about that time that company founder Ransom Eli Olds left the company to start the new REO or Rio company, and he took both his reputation and many of his customers with him. And it wasn't long before Rio was outselling Oldsmobile. Then, of course, there's Ford. When the Ford Motor Company was created with the breakup of the Henry Ford Company, the Ford was essentially an instant success, although it would take a few years before it took the number one spot. And when it did take the sales lead, it took it by a huge margin. And with the introduction of the Model T, those numbers just kept climbing up. And at the beginning, its closest competitor was Buick. Buick's offering was much more advanced and more expensive than the Model T, but they were able to offer a better car than most of their competitors at a lower price, which is part of the reason why it was used as the basis to form General Motors, all of which helped it sell in higher numbers than cars that cost less. And then we have Maxwell-Brisco, a company that was essentially the forerunner to Chrysler. And although it was never the sales leader per se, it was always a consistently top seller in a period when the fortunes seemed to rise and fall with the change of the wind, and was easily the most successful brand outside of General Motors and Ford. Studebaker was already an old company before it started making cars, but it did start producing electric cars in 1902 and gasoline-powered cars in 1904, although it didn't see any real success until the end of the decade. When it did see that success, it came on very quickly. Cadillac had also came out of the breakup of the Henry Ford Company, and for the first couple of years actually outsold Fords, quickly building a reputation for a higher quality product. Overland was created in 1903, but struggled until the Willys takeover in 1908, after which sales quickly shot up, becoming a top 10 seller almost immediately. Rambler, the original Rambler before it became Nash, was quick to adopt new technologies as they came out. And in some ways this helped sales, and in other ways it hurt it. But at least through the middle part of this decade, it remained a top seller. And then we'll be topping off our list with White. For those of you that are familiar with White, you probably know it most for its commercial vehicles. But during this period, it was one of the leading producers of steam-powered cars. So there you have it, a dozen or so of the top-selling American brands from 1900 to 1910. Were they the brands you thought you would see on this list? Is there anything there that surprises you? Are there any observations you may see on here that I may have missed? If so, comment below. Otherwise, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.